Today's guest is a management consultant, business mentor, and fintech expert. He's the founder and chief pencil officer of Fintech Review, an online media on the fintech industry. Welcome to the show, Tristan. How are you doing?
Thanks for having me, Toby. I'm doing very well.
Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Mirror Talk. I really appreciate your presence here right now, and I'm super excited and looking forward to learning so much about the fintech industry and learning so much about financial services or finance services also from you. But before we get down into that, I would love you to share a little bit about yourself. What inspired you to to venture into management consulting, into business mentoring, and also into finance?
Yeah, sure. I went to business school, and after my master's, most of my classmates were going into investment banking, and I initially thought, it's for me. Like I'll do like everybody else, and actually, I had an opportunity. At that point, I was in London, and I had an opportunity to work in corporate strategy. So at a bank, doing an interesting project at first, which was to carve out the bank and create a new bank, a new independent bank. So it was super interesting, and I was young and full of ambitions. So I said, "Oh, okay, let's do this." So I worked in corporate strategy, corporate finance for almost 6 years in London. So working on a range of projects in during that time, including developing strategic partnerships with fintechs and also understanding what was happening in terms of innovation in financial services, where the industry was going, how it could impact us as a business. So this is where my two passions started to develop, like strategy, so business and corporate strategy, and fintech. And so that was fun for a few years, but I got tired of London, and I wanted a bit of change, which also is because I grew up moving places a lot. So I kind of like a place for a while, and then I want to move. So I decided to leave London, and I moved to Barcelona. And I started a couple of businesses here. I started Fintech Review, as you say, an online media on the fintech industry. And I started to become like an independent management consultant. So using my background in corporate strategy to help companies to develop startups, scale-ups, and also like larger companies that might have some specific problems that they need help with. And I work with them a bit all over the world. So in Europe, in the US as well.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And so what was the story behind Fintech Review? Like, why did you start it up? Is it due to your movements across, different countries, or because of your, working in the bank and, having experience from different financial institutes? How did you start it up, and what's the story behind it?
So I was in my job, I was writing a lot about, what was going on in fintech. Up to the point that I was doing every 2 weeks, like a summary. Oh, this is what happened in fintech the past 2 weeks. I was writing articles, but internally. So all this was internally. Then I thought, oh, it's silly. I mean, I was in a large organization. It was 10,000 people, but I was like, yeah, but if I were to start a blog, I could write, and it's unlimited, like the potential of people I could reach. So it started like this. I started a blog, and then it evolved because I started engaging with other people in fintech, and then like, oh, do you want to do an interview of this CEO of this fintech? So I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. So it went from a personal blog to being like, well, I still do write. Especially in my weekly newsletter, but I interview people in the industry. So from companies from a bit all sizes. So tomorrow I'll be publishing an interview of the CEO of Word First, which is like a big fintech of 500 people.
Yeah.
So it evolved from personal project to now being a bit more. I like to call it a small media platform.
Yeah, it's good, and I love the fact that you're using this medium to also to educate other people about finance also, or the financial institute also. Like sometimes one could ask that what is fintech? If that's possible, is it possible to educate me or educate the listeners also on what fintech means? As in, why is it called fintech? What do fintech companies do, and what are the innovations that are involved in the financial services also?
Yeah, I mean that's a big question. What is fintech? And it's so. I mean, theoretically, it's just it's a contraction of finance and technology. So it's theoretically technology applied to finance.
Mm,
I personally take a broader view, and for me, it's all the innovation that is happening in financial services. So technology, but also new business models, new ways to do things without the technology aspect. So
mm,
obviously, most financial services today, and I mean most businesses,
yeah.
it's a lot about technology anyway.
Hmm.
So most of the innovations are actually just technological innovation, but sometimes it's not so much about technology. It's a way you use technology to actually do better, and because in terms of availability of technology, most financial services, most financial service companies, they can access the same kind of technology. The difference is what they do with it, and this is where the innovation really comes in. So there's a lot of companies. It's not only startups. You have fintech companies that have been around 30 years, so it's not just a startup that was created 5 years ago and oh, this is a fintech.
Mm,
So there are lots of companies doing various things. I mean, fintech companies can be retail banks. In Europe there is N26, there are like
mm,
Revolut. There's many companies are retail focused, and then you have some companies are business focused, and they what they look at is more selling to banks, selling to other businesses. So various companies doing various things, but everybody trying to innovate and
mm.
change financial services.
Wow, that's good. I, I know I happen to know that you have your own startup also. Is it also a
Mm.
fintech startup? And can you tell us a little bit about what you do with your startup?
So yeah, I mean, I have started, but the problem is that I lack time, and but yeah, I started to work on my own startup, uh, and I need to dedicate more time to develop it.
Mm,
But I'm quite interested in the way people plan for their financial future.
mm,
Um, so you can find easily tools that help you manage your money like day to day. But what I'm actually interested is more, okay, what are your goals, your financial goals in life? I don't know. I want to buy a house in 5 years. I want to retire in 10 years, or this kind of goals, and
mm,
helping people achieve this.
mm,
Um, so basically building a sort of dashboard that can help people make better decisions, uh, and being like, okay, tell me what is your financial situation now, what you plan to do in the next, and then model what your future situation is going to be, and then tell you, okay, maybe you should do this at that point, maybe think about like this investment that will help you, better achieve your goals. So this is what I'm working on.
mm,
But as you can imagine, it's a bit complex, but yeah, no, I quite like, it's also one of the reasons why I'm doing fintech review. I quite like the concept of financial education and helping people in their journey to understand better finance. Doesn't need to be super boring. You can make it fun and make it like, okay, I'm going to tell you how you should better manage. And it's I mean, I have lots of friends always ask me, oh, what do you think about that? How would you do this?
Mm.
And I'm like, oh yeah, but what if I was trying to scale this whole, like, I'm helping you achieve your goals.
Yes, I love that. Like helping, like an app or a software that helps us to achieve our financial goals. That's
Mm.
good. Or maybe, helping us to create some saving plans or where we could, cut some expenses that are not necessary also. That'd be good.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a lot of budgeting apps. That's what they say, they do. They tell you you're spending too much on coffee and McDonald's.
Mm,
But actually, I mean, what matters a lot more in your financial life over the long run is if you invest your money or not, or if you save enough to invest, and then as you invest, it compounds, and then you have much more money, a few years
yes.
down the line,
Mm,
um, much more than saving on the €2 coffees that you buy every day. Of course, it accumulates, but this is not this is not what is going to change a lot
mm,
over the course of a lifetime.
mm,
It's the big expenses. You live in a city that is too expensive. You have this lease on a car that you shouldn't have. So it's a big items, and then it's what do you do with this money
mm.
that you invest, and you invest wisely and you diversify, and this is what actually matters over 20 years.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. Well, I did like some other tips that you could share with us, some other financial tips from your journey so far. Because earlier I was enjoying your story when you said you don't like to stay in a place, but you move from city to city or country to country, for example, from London to Spain now. And are there like some tips you've gotten, some strategies that you've learned on how to save money, how to plan your finance even in a much better way through all of these journeys and career change also?
Yeah, I mean, since I started working, I kind of always saved a lot and invested um, a big share of my salary, because I always thought, as I grow older, I want this kind of financial freedom to decide. It's not like stopping. It's not really retire, but what I wanted is to be at a point where money is not the pressure that
Mm,
guides you. So the problem is that if you live paycheck to paycheck without savings, what happens is that you're not free to choose what you want to do in terms of work,
yeah.
and you can't seize also all the opportunities. If you have zero savings and the guy says, okay, for 6 months you're not getting anything, but in 6 months you'll get €1 million, right,
Mm,
of salary, right?
mm,
It's an extreme scenario, but the thing is, if you live paycheck to paycheck, you're like, oh, I can't do it. I need to pay the rent. I have bills that are gonna accumulate.
yeah.
If you buy yourself this freedom by saving, then you can make these choices. So I always kind of applied this when I started working. I was like, okay, I want to save and invest so that I reach a point where I'm not pressured by the day to day. I would still need to work, but I wouldn't be pressured. I could take time off if I wanted to. I could, you know, uh, do something that pays later. So, for instance, starting a company,
Mm,
typically, like, you don't earn anything at first, and it pays after.
mm,
But if you haven't saved, then, or invested, or if you're not, maybe your parents are rich and it's not the problem. But for me, I was like, okay, I want to buy my own freedom. So that's what I did. I saved. My goal every month was like, okay, I need to. But I was quite mental about it. I was like,
mm,
I need to save at least 50% of my salary. So, which means that the way I was doing it is literally I take it as this is spent. So my available money to spend is my salary minus what I've saved.
mm,
At first, I wasn't able to do it because, seeing as I was living in London, and it's a bit, you're starting, your salaries is not very good.
mm,
But what I did is, I remember my first salaries. I literally saved £100, but I was like, okay, I have £100 saved, and I invested it. And so then obviously this 100 grew and grew. Um, and then I was able to save 50%, and then I was saving more and more than 50%. And I was like, because I wasn't increasing, I reached a point where I was like, okay, I'm happy with what I'm spending. I don't need to spend more. I could have spent more. I could have, like, bought a Rolex or went to the Caribbean for 3 weeks and then you splash everything. But I was thinking more, my goal, my life goal was that, okay, actually, in a few years, I want to have a bit of freedom. And the sad reality that if you spend the money, you're not having freedom later. And so you need to make a choice about what you want. And the thing is, you have lots of people that are in the mentality that they're going to earn more, so it doesn't matter, they can spend more. But the thing is, it never ends. You can always spend more. And if you want to spend $1 million a month, well, as some football players, they spend $1 million a month. But the thing is, the reality is that you need to be realistic and find this, okay, this is where, my startup idea, I'm quite passionate about, like, okay, what's your goal and what you're spending now, and telling people the harsh reality that, okay, you're not going to achieve your goal. You want to retire in 20 years? Well, you're not going to make it with what you're doing now. And also the other way, okay, actually, you're fine. You could spend more if you wanted to. So being realistic, and I've always been like that, which meant that because I did this for a few years, then I was able to do the move, start my company, not stressing about it because I'm now comfortable. But from the choices I made 7 years ago. But this is how finance works. You need to make choices that are going to pay off in 5 years, not in 2 weeks.
Yeah, yes. And I'm happy you say, one of the choices we could make is to invest our money. Like you said, you were saving £100 before when you were in London, and then you invested it, and the £100 grew and grew. And one way that one could invest now is through cryptocurrency, for example, like buying cryptocurrencies and investing into that cryptocurrency world. And behind all of that is also the blockchain system. With your knowledge, can you explain a little bit what blockchain system means, how it works, and how it is connected, how it is being used for financial services also?
Yeah. So as you say, so there are two things. So cryptocurrencies are an application of blockchain technology, but there are many more. Actually, as a technology, it's quite interesting for other applications in financial services. So it's in very simple terms, it's a distributed database, and it's encrypted. So which means that as opposed to a centralized database, it's distributed and it's also encrypted, which means that, for instance, in the case of cryptocurrencies, unless someone takes control of the network, then everybody has the same kind of view of the world, as opposed to so if you deal with like a bank, they will have the database, and they will have their view of the world, and it's centralized, it's in their systems, and it's a different way to store data, basically. And it's useful, especially in financial services, because in financial services, people tend not to trust each other. So, which means that you have lots of intermediaries for various reasons, just to validate transactions and stuff like that. So you gain lots of time with cryptocurrencies on that front. But for me, I'm actually more interested in other use cases in financial services. So, for instance, trade finance or invoice finance, lots of financial journeys that involve lots of people for many. Like, so, for instance, you want to export some goods, and the exporter, like the way he gets finance is that it's a very complex process. There are 10 people involved. It costs a lot. And you're like, yeah, but if the buyer and the seller in these two countries could put all the information in a trusted environment where actually they don't have to trust each other, is that it's automatic and the other party can change it, that would be great. So anyway, that's what blockchain tries to do, is to solve these situations where there is no trust. So, and the point around investing in cryptocurrencies or other things, my advice tend to be is like, as long as you diversify, so which means you don't put everything into cryptocurrencies, you don't put everything into Bitcoin, you buy a bit of cryptocurrencies, you buy a bit of equity, you buy, well, if you can, a bit of real estate, and you build a portfolio of diversified things. Because what happens is that it's your exposure to, for instance, a crash of one asset class, and then all your portfolio crashes with it. But the more you diversify, the less likely it is to happen, because you don't, like, usually, like, things don't follow. So for instance, the stock market crashes. Well, if you have invested in real estate, it should, be fine. And like the other way around, like where you bought real estate, maybe it's crashing, but equity, maybe it's not. So this is where you reduce risk over time, and it's super important over the long run as you want to build wealth.
Oh, that's good. Wow. So that means the blockchain system is safe, as in secure for us to use for transactions.
Yeah, and yes and no, because it's not, it's not a silver bullet. For instance, in many cases, actually, it's not that safe if someone manages to bypass. And in the case of Bitcoin, if someone controls 51% of the network, then they're able to rewrite the transactions. And at that point, it's, of course, it's not going to happen, because it requires a lot of, but which tells you that it's not because it's blockchain that it's secure. It's some centralized systems are quite secured. It's just that it's decentralized, so it's just a different way to structure. But because it's encrypted, it's decentralized by its nature, it's a bit more secure than, let's say, a centralized database that is not encrypted. Of course, this would not be as secured, but if you look, most banks, they have centralized systems but are encrypted, and it's also super hard if you wanted to steal money from JP Morgan. I can tell you it's going to take you a while to figure it out.
And that's good. Yeah, we don't want to steal money from JP Morgan. Yeah. Well, for those who are interested in fintech, are there like some major trends that we should be interested in today? Like, are there some major things that we should know about today in fintech?
So, well, I mean, cryptocurrencies, I guess, is a trend that everybody knows about. So we see an interesting one that I follow quite closely, because it's still a young industry, young asset. I qualify it as an asset class. It's quite young, but it will be interesting to see where it goes in terms of regulation, because governments are trying to impose some regulation, a bit the same as financial services. So it would be interesting to see where all this goes and the impact. There is a category of fintech services that is growing, and it will be more and more. It's all that is called embedded finance. So it's actually, I mean, you already see it, but it's, when you order Uber or when you go on Amazon and you actually don't see the payment, is that, it's super embedded in the customer journey and it's invisible. So I think we'll see more and more of this invisible payments and invisible finance, because the less friction you have at checkout, whatever checkout or whatever buying process, the better. Because when you think about it, the payment aspect or the finance aspect, no one cares about. Is that you want a Uber, you don't care about like actually paying for it. I mean, of course you care about paying, but that's not the purpose of the customer journey. Or you buy a house, like you don't care about the mortgage, you want the house, but there's a lot of friction in getting a mortgage. So I think embedded finance, embedded banking, all this really embedded stuff, or embedded fintech, will continue to grow. It's already here, but it will continue to grow. So these are two trends. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. So artificial intelligence, I guess, machine learning and models being more used. It's used here and there, but not so much at scale. Yeah, I mean, then there are lots of things happening in terms of. I generally wonder in some parts of the fintech industry where you have too many companies. You have too many players going after the same customer. So I'm sure there will be like waves of failures in some parts, because it's just normal. Like if you have 10 companies going after like the same customer, not everybody can win. And especially some fintechs that aim to go with like super thin margins. Problem is that they need huge scale to survive. And if everybody needs huge scale and needs millions of customers, but they're fighting for the same customers, not everybody can survive. So I think that especially in the retail focused fintechs, we'll see some consolidation, some companies being acquired by others, because I just see some segments being way too crowded. And I see it the most I see it is in the UK, with all these neobanks going after the same customers, not making money. And I'm like, yeah, but you can play for a few years by getting money from investors and telling them, yeah, I'll win. I can tell you I will win. And then ultimately you don't win, and you've burned a few million. So yeah, that's my view of the current trends.
Yeah, thanks so much for that. But like for someone who is interested in investing or starting up something in the fintech industry, what are like some less saturated markets? Like just picking up from what you said, what are some less saturated markets that one could focus on, and with lesser competition as other saturated spaces?
Well, they're hard ones. That's the reality, that businesses, I mean, startups tend to try to find the path of least resistance. So, that's why most fintechs developed in retail. First it was like FX transfers because it was super easy to do, and then going a bit further up in terms of complexity. So where it's less saturated is the things that are complex. So what I was saying, figuring out trade finance. So figuring out finance between countries with all the implications that it has. This is complicated. And it's not saturated because most people can't figure it out how to do it. So what I said, like mortgage. So imagine a customer journey, like super embedded, like buying a house, like super smooth mortgage journey and stuff. So yeah, all these things are like super hard to solve, because either you have lots of intermediaries at the moment, or it's heavy on the legal side, including different legal systems. So for instance, when you start talking about finance between countries and stuff, you mean like different compliance, different legal systems, and this starts to be like super messy to solve. So yeah, if you want to start a business, look at the hardest problem, uh, that is an expensive problem for your customer and go solve it. But I think there are still a few of this expensive, hard problem to solve. But for now, I don't think that, I mean, I wouldn't do it. Like there are some of these problems. I'm like, I'm not touching this. It's just too complicated. So
Yeah, yes. Well, if one has a solution to a big problem, then one has the opportunity to earn a lot of money also, and or to improve the world in a better way also. Yeah, yes,
definitely.
that's true. So you're an advisor, strategic advisor to several fintech companies, and you're also, as we said, also building up your own startup at the same time. So are there like some advice and strategies that you could share with us so that we can also use those strategies to grow our business and grow up our startups to like you are doing yours? So.
Yeah, I mean, I have it's a boring advice, but it's to structure a bit your ideas. So, for instance, doing a business plan, it's boring, but you need to get to that. So a lot of people that advise at the end of the day, it's okay. You have a great idea. I can see there is passion in you and that you want to do something. I'm like, okay, let's take a step back and break this down into an actual business plan. What is your market? What is your product? What problem are you solving? How are you pricing your products? What are your margins? Like, what are your financial predictions? So doing all this boring stuff, this boring business strategy stuff, but you need to do it. You need to organize yourself. Doesn't mean that you can grow like super fast, but still being a bit organized. So it doesn't mean being organized in like being compliant and like a corporate. Just saying in the way you want to execute your vision, being like super organized and okay, I'm going to launch this product first because I want to launch this after and to achieve my vision as in terms of business. So being a bit, I mean, doing a bit of this boring stuff of organizing how you want to, it doesn't mean that you can review your plan all the time, but just so that you put your things on paper, because this is where also you're going to see the weaknesses in your plan, in your business, is that as you go through all these elements, oh, my customers are here and okay, I'm solving this problem. And then you actually realize, am I solving this problem with my product? And okay, and then as usually what happens is that when you have this plan, someone external like me can come in and say, okay, how do you know this is true? Like that you're solving this problem? Have you talked to your customers? Okay. Oh, no, I'm going to talk to them. And actually they tell you, oh, no, we'll never pay for a product. So this is, when you have a plan, actually you can drill in some of the elements to see if it's a rock solid plan and if it's going to work. And then obviously you go for it and you test and you fail and you adapt. But at first, before anything, having a clear view on how you're going to execute your idea. And it's not that easy. I mean, and strategy execution is complicated, and it's and you're most times people fail. But also, like if you have a good plan, you're less likely to fail than if you go without an idea of how it's all going to work.
Yeah, that's true. Wow. And there are like some simple tips or simple ways we could make or draw a very effective business plan. Like I got to understand already that it's very important for us to have a business plan, but can you like share some ways we could from the on-go like draw a very, very effective business plan?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the best is simple, is that at first I'm talking about like, maximum 10 pages. It's just, but not even like your high level business plan is basically like what's your market? Who are your customers? And what are you selling to them? And how? This is your business plan. This is like basically with that. So it's you can summarize by where, what, why and how, or something like that. But this is your base. It's like, okay, tell me what is your market. So then first you can see how big is your, but estimate how big is your market. So what is your market? I want to sell cars in Germany. Okay, well, it's a big market. Okay, fine. Who are your customers within that market? You can't say everybody. You say, okay, it's this type of people because and then you go to, I'm selling this product. I'm selling sports car. So it's going to be male between 25 and 34 or whatever, living in that part of the region. How are you selling to them? Online, you go to them. So this is the base of your business plan. And this is your idea in execution. And from there, you go and you like, okay, you go a bit deeper into what your product is going to be. And this is where you drill down. But first, as I said, you do the where, what, why, how of your idea. And that's literally a page. And then from there, you build more. But and then you can build a pitch deck, but a pitch deck also should be like maximum 10 pages of all these things. Like, and then you talk about the team, and then you talk about like whatever. But at first, being clear on what exactly is the idea.
Can we do it on our own, or do we need someone like you to help us to draw the plan? Is it something that we can do in our own, in the convenience of our bedroom or of our home, or is it something that we need like an expert to do?
No. I mean, you definitely don't need someone like me to get started. And as I said, I think my general advice is to put things on paper, or on paper or on computer, but to write things down.
Yeah.
So you have an idea. You're like, okay, I have an idea of a business, and then go back to these things. Okay, I don't know. I think that I'm gonna sell like bottles of water. Okay, fine. What's my market? Who am I gonna sell it to? Okay, fine. What is different with my product? Why people would buy my bottles of water? And then how do I sell it to them? So this is super, I mean, it's not super easy to do, but this is like this mental exercise of saying if your idea is actually a business, or if it's just an idea. Because there's lots of ideas, but they're not businesses. Is that, because for many reasons, maybe no one wants my red bottle of water because it's crappy, and maybe people don't like metal bottles of water. So this is this mental thing of going from idea to business, but this high level first questions to answer, you can do it. I mean, you literally Google stuff, and you will have an idea of, and then I think, I mean, I come in when people are a bit stuck, but this first exercise of defining really what you want to do, that usually I can't do it for you. I mean, I can help you with some parts, like, I don't know, quantifying a market, or helping you, like, how do you define like the distribution and stuff like that. But figuring out, what should I do like as a business? This is not for me to say. I'm advising on existing material, not on. I don't have a lot of ideas. Like, I'm not here to sell ideas of business. This is for people to, and I sometimes meet people that are they're much more creative and much more like, I have this idea and stuff. What they're not good at is actually executing. But this is where I'm more an executioner than an idea person.
Wow, that's good. Thank you so much for sharing that. So I would just love to know, like, in your experience so far, what are like the biggest lessons that you've learned from life and from your career? If you could share some of the biggest lessons that you've ever learned.
What have I learned in life? Well, when I started working, well, actually, when I was a student, and then I was looking for our first job, I thought money was super important, but like money in the sense I want to make as much money as possible, like kind of becoming super, super rich.
Mm.
And then I realized that actually that's not the point. The point is more money buys you freedom. And as I said, freedom to choose, freedom to maybe live wherever you want, to decide if you want to work a lot or not. So this is my understanding of and view over money has changed, and that was a lesson that I've learned over time. That I was like, at some point I was like, yeah, but what's my path here? I'll learn more, but it's not what I want to do. So I learned this. I was like, okay, actually, maybe you don't need to maximize, and maybe it's about like doing something you like, maybe for being paid a bit less. What I'm not saying is that money is not, I think this bullshit of money is not buying you happiness is not true. Is that if you have enough money, like the right level of money, that you don't have to worry, this buys you happiness because you're not worried. And that's true. But at some point, there is also a level where it doesn't add so much, because you add another 5K, another 10K, and you're like, yeah, but you buy also if you can't combine this with other things you want to do. Oh, I want to live here. Oh, yeah, but to earn that much money, you need to be in London, for instance. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to be in London. So then you make trade-offs and you're like, okay, well, I'll live. So that I learned. And that was probably the biggest lesson so far. Also learned that, I mean, I don't want to retire. I mean, I don't see myself like not doing anything. And as I became, as I run my own business, my plan initially was like, okay, I'll work less. I'll work to like a good amount, and then I'll chill the rest of the time. Actually, I mean, then I realized this is not my mentality. So I actually work more now that it's my own business. And it's not a reason that I want to increase the turnover to the moon. It's just that I love the fact that I can work on different projects and I can meet different people and different opportunities that I can follow. And so this is also something I learned, is that, okay, I'm always going to be relentless and trying to develop myself, my skills, like, so, and I don't think I'm going to be like chill. Oh yeah, I like to work 10 hours a week and go to the beach. I don't think it's the way I see things. So yeah, I mean, that have been the lessons so far. And yeah, and also, I mean, this is more pandemic related, but the fact that you can work like super easily remotely there is no, of course, when I see people and face to face and we do things, but in my job, it doesn't matter where I am. And that's been the biggest lessons, I guess, the past 2 years, which is that I can do my job from anywhere. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter my clients. Doesn't matter for me. And there's lots of business trips that were useless. I used to do London, Scotland every 2 weeks for 2 days. 90% of these trips would be redundant now. So I think it's not only my lesson, it's a lesson of everybody, where actually this Zoom calls can replace most of the face-to-face meetings. And it brings a lot of freedom to lots of people that don't want to be in big cities and distributed workforces. I think it's going to be a massive change for many people and many companies that can hire anywhere and everywhere, without the constraints of a city, and people also being able to go live where they want to be. And I want to go live in in my native country. Okay, cool. Or I want to go live in a small village surrounded by cows. Yeah, cool. Yeah, as long as you have internet, you know. So I think I think it's a great, you know, trend.
Yeah, oh, that's good. Yes, thank you so much for sharing some of the biggest lessons that you've learned so far. If there's anyone out there who still has, questions or still would love to, get across to you, learn more from you, what's the best way to connect and work with you?
So they can reach out on hello at fintechreview.net, and I'll make my best to answer. Also connecting with me on LinkedIn, or following me on Twitter, fintech_review. Yeah, I mean, I'm always happy to talk about innovation, the startup world, strategy. As you can see, I talk a lot, so I love to talk. So yeah, I mean, if you have any questions, wondering about life, just reach out.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tristan. I really appreciate your all the words of, your explanation. I really appreciate, explanation about fintech companies, and I appreciate all the words that you shared, while explaining all the lessons that you've learned in life, and yeah, all the, ideas and experiences that you've been able to, enjoy in life also. Thank you so much for this wonderful conversation. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Toby.
Hey there, podcast enthusiasts. Are you ready to add a little sparkle to your day? If you're loving the insightful conversations and captivating stories on Mirror Talk Podcast, here's a friendly nudge to hit that subscribe button. By subscribing, you'll never miss out on the empowering messages and thought-provoking discussions we bring to your ears. But wait, there's more. We're all about spreading positivity and inspiration, and you can be a part of it too. How? By sharing the love with your friends and family. Share this episode with your loved ones, and let's create a ripple effect of empowerment and growth together. And hey, if you've been enjoying what you hear, why not take a moment to leave us a glowing 5-star review? Your feedback fuels our passion to keep delivering content that resonates with you. So hit that subscribe button, share the love, and leave us a review. Let's keep the conversation going and spread the Mirror Talk magic far and wide. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, your support means the world to us.